describe is something that, yeah, I totally recognize. Like I remember when I was basically going to work and walking while reading, or reading while walking rather, and people would look at me and find me weird. I remember trying to read a book while walking to work in Helsinki in in the middle of winter, so you can imagine my hands were totally frozen when I got to the office, and it was windy, so it was hard to even try to read. Um, but this reminds me that actually one of the things that it's quite common for anyone out there looking for knowledge is this constant search, right? Like we end up searching for information wherever it is. Of course, these days Google to start with, and then we get some book ideas, or somebody posts a link to a book on social media. Maybe we have some ebook reader like Kindle or Kobo or something like that, and we get it, or we don't, and then we order it, and we're excited, waiting for the book, and end up with this shelves full of books. Yeah,
Well,
so it's not
before I
easy
move,
to
I gave
know.
away, I think, 350 to 400 books just to the charity shops, just like get rid of the weight, because it was overwhelming for me to just imagine to pack those books and then move in the boxes. I was like, okay, no, 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 let's reduce the number of things.
And that overwhelm is something that affects many of us. So one of the things that I've noticed, a trend that I've noticed, is that a lot of people, especially if you want to learn something quick, a lot of people are turning to e-courses instead of books, right? Because the e-courses give you the solution already, right?
Yeah,
Like this is
yeah,
what you need to do. Here's how you get
yeah,
started,
yeah,
and it isn't about searching for knowledge anymore than it is about searching for tools these days.
exactly. And a book usually takes about 10 hours on an average, a good book. And I'm not talking about long fiction books, and not academic text like books written by Steven Pinker, where you have to read like every line twice to even understand. But normal books on how-to books or informational or transformational, business transformation, business change, or career change, and anything like that, takes about 10 hours. And if you practice it deliberately, much more than that. But online courses are often um, uh, less time consuming on the consumption side, but more engaging in the sense that like people have homework, people have communication with their colleagues or follow students and stuff.
Yeah. Like the
Yeah.
community that is generated around that. And it's
Yeah.
also a cool way for you to get to be known by your audience, right? Like this idea that when you're writing a book, of course, you're kind of jumping into the author's mind, but it's completely different if you see the author live. And I mean, it's no surprise that a lot of authors are sought after speakers because people want to see them live, right? It's
Yeah.
like I've read the book, I want to see this person live. We connect. I have some kind of empathy towards the author. I want to see the author live. And with e-courses, you end up having a lot of the content. It's not 100% of the content, but a lot of the content is you in front of a camera talking to your audience. And then what I think is even great e-courses have this live components, right? Like this weekly or bi-weekly Q&A with the author of the e-course, and follow up on assignments and things like that. And I think it's a very cool way for people to share their expertise with their audience.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, not only that, but also because I'm from a world which is more on the marketing side, my background. So most people who approach me with the idea that like, hey, we want to create an online course and stuff, they have this kind of mindset of uh, we want to package what we know into something. So that's a little bit shift in the mindset, but then it goes parallel with the things they can do with packaging what they know into either books or use books as a way to get um, well qualified people into their online courses and things like that. So that's another way
So
to look at it.
that's another way, but you can also use e-courses as a way to generate leads. I mean, we've done this at Oikosofi. We had a couple of e-courses where one is kind of a splinter of the main e-course. So it's for product managers. We work with product development usually. So our audience is, of course, or part of our audience is product managers. And one of the things we did is we took a splinter, like one specific topic, and we created a free e-course that then people can sign up to and become leads for the main e-course, which is, of course, longer and it has more topics and it covers, it's everything is built with the SMIQ, so we cover the most common problems people experience and so on. SMIQ, by the way, it's something we've mentioned in the other video, so you can go and check it out. And it's also a great way, e-courses are a great way to generate leads. Like, you could have that particular course is like less than an hour. It's like it has 8 modules and it's less than an hour. Of course, it took more than that to generate. But again, like we always argue, it's about the expertise we already had. So it didn't take a long time to figure out what was the topic and what were the key points we were trying to create. But of course, generating the video, the exercises, the how-to guides and so on, that takes some time. But once that was up and running, we started getting leads, and it's still collecting leads today. It's kind of this evergreen lead magnet.
Yeah. But it's also not only lead magnet, but it's also a good source of passive income going forward. So, for example, a business like mine, we don't need 100 clients a year. We just need like 4 or 5 in the whole year. So you don't really need to build like a whole team doing lead generation or like a plethora of books. You don't need to author books or create lots and lots of courses to generate leads. I think one course is more than enough. One book is more than enough if you're a small business and you want to fill the pipeline for a couple of years. So you want to even make a wait list. And this is something that I want to write an article about, that you can, there's no need for you to take clients urgently if you have enough people who are willing to hire you. And book or course, these things actually make it happen. Because what happens on the client side is they think they have a problem. And this is something very, very deep that I learned after working in the therapy field. I did not know this, that every time somebody think they have a problem, they don't really know what the problem is. They know the symptoms, no matter what they describe. Like think about going to a doctor and describing your problems to the doctor. You never say the deep problem. You expect the doctor to tell you that, oh, this is the real problem. That's why you're having these symptoms.
Sometimes not even the doctors know.
Yes, exactly. They miss it a lot of time. And this is where in me working with Vasco, I'm always like coming to Vasco, and Vasco would ask me one question or two here and there. And I'm like, oh gosh, I didn't even see that coming, the things behind the pattern and things like that. So you know those problems as an expert, but your customers don't. So when they buy
know the symptoms
course,
only. Exactly.
They just know the symptoms. And when you do the marketing and selling, you sell on the symptoms. You don't sell on the problem, because the moment you talk about problem, people will think we don't have that problem,
Hey, let's talk about that specific client that you have right now who wants to build an e-course. And in fact, that's why we're doing this episode about e-courses. So tell us a little bit about the problem as it came to you, i.e. the list of symptoms you were presented.
Yeah. I'll jump on it for a second, because there's one point that I wanted to connect the dots between what I was saying with what you said. So when people buy your course or sign up to your course and or a book, they realize that the problem is deeper than what they thought. And this is where they seek help. This is where, like, okay, I have 2 choices: whether I can hire someone in my team to do this work, or I can just ask this guy who's written the book, who's explained me the whole thing, to come and help me out. And that's how the lead generation part work with these courses and books. Exactly. So now this brings down to, again, what problems people think they have are not really the problems; they're just the symptoms. So when I get clients, and this is a pattern, every time I'm working as a product developer for online courses, online academies. So I help them establish academies, and that include their marketing funnels and creation of their the customer journeys across. One of the things, like almost 100% of the cases, is this. People are experts. They have spent years in doing something what they do, what they get paid for. And they think they know a lot. And all they need to figure out is how to package this thing and then sell it to others. So if you look at it, I was drawing a visual diagram of how this actually look like in picture. So if you look at the center of a picture, like of a page, as a person with a bulb on his head, like with an idea. And then what this bulb has is around that idea, you come up with an idea, and I'm guilty of this myself. I have done this a long time ago, many times. You then try to find people who would like this idea. So you think that, oh, I know, I'm an expert. And let's say, for example, in my case, I'm an expert at course creation. I will package everything, every detail, how to create like world's best, academically best, well-referenced, well-interviewed from expert course, right? And then I will go, once I package this, I'm happy that I've done this, and I'll hire marketers and go find me clients for this. And they'll go around, they look for
the push marketing, right? Like
exactly.
Get them to buy it even if they don't think they need it.
Yeah, exactly. And people will buy these courses, they'll get overwhelmed, and they'll either give up on that problem or find some other solutions to that problem.
Because the people looking for the courses don't have your knowledge. So when you overwhelm them with knowledge, they become blind to what they are trying to do, and they become like scared. Okay, maybe I really should step back and do something else, right? Like, this is too complicated. I'm not good enough for it, so I'll do something else.
Yeah. And plus the worst part, and most of these entrepreneurs and the marketers do not respect the intelligence of the readers, of the students, of the people who are buying these courses. So you will see a lot of gimmicks and things like, hey, this is a well-known fact. Most courses, when people buy courses, they never finish those courses. Now, this is blamed on the ability or distracted mindset of the consumer. In reality, in my experience, we have talked about this in our previous videos, that the power of storytelling, power of narratives. The reason why people are not consuming, not finishing your courses, not going through the whole cycle is not that they are distracted. They have a problem. That problem is not solved. And until that problem is not solved, they will keep trying.
And that's another thing. The problem they have is defined by them, even though they are only talking about symptoms. And one of the things that happens when people build e-courses is that they start from the solution perspective, right? Like, I have this great thing that I want to give the world, so I'll just write about it. I'll create an e-course about it. Kind of the author-based writing method, or author-based e-course creation method, which is wrong, because that's not what your customers are looking for. What they're looking for is a solution for a problem they already know they have. And I think that this is one of the key aspects of the 48-hour book method, is that we start from the avatar's self-described problems using tools like the SMIQ, or the single most important question survey, and then writing for them using their language, like creating a way to communicate that is totally based on your avatar's definition of the problem. Now, you're the expert, you know a lot more, and getting back to the story, this person you're helping is a photographer. He's the expert on photography. Mm-hmm. But here's the thing. He's not the expert on what his customers are trying to solve, right? Like, he's using, and we talked about this. So explain a little bit how this problem was presented to you by your client.
Right. So my client is an established photographer, and very specifically in Indian or Asian wedding photography. And I'm not talking about the Chinese and stuff, but more like Indian, Pakistani, Bangladeshi, the brown Asian origin. Their weddings have very specific cultures, and their families have different structures than rest of the world. So the wedding photographer needs to know those and stuff. So he's mastered this craft. Every now and then, and he's almost always overbooked. So every now and then he hire people to take his place and just distribute the money and stuff. Very often he come across people like, it's super common according to him that people do not really fulfill the quality.
So the photographers are not good enough.
Yeah, exactly. So at least in this specific niche where he's an expert. Now, what he want to do is there are a couple of things, and this was where I was talking with you last time and you were helping me clarify on the goals, because then this is how the clients would think. Hey, I want to be able to hire other photographers who comply with my own quality. So I want to have an online course which will make other photographers quality checked by me, trained by me, and it will also create a pool of photographers who I can hire when I have, with my client base, without losing any money. This is one problem. The second one was I have all of this knowledge and I want to package it, and I only have, let's say, till April, May, when I'm free. If I need to record anything, I can record during this time, and I have all this knowledge. I can record it. I can look at other photographers' courses that I have enrolled in. I will look at what they are doing. I'll do my version of that.
So just copy it, right? Like, I have all this knowledge. I'll just write it down if you're a book author, or I'll just record it if you're creating an e-course. Now, there's a problem with this approach, of course, which is that the people he wants to hire may not want to have the knowledge that he's conveying, not because the knowledge isn't useful, but because they don't understand how the knowledge helps him. The tools that this entrepreneur will be sharing in this e-course have a lack of context for the people participating in the e-course, right? And this is one of the problems that the 48-hour book method tries to solve, which is start from the context, start from the avatar. In fact, we very often say that your customer is the hero. Yeah. You are just the guide, right? Like, our job as content creators, whether it's book or e-courses, is to be the Yoda to their Luke, right? Like, we want to help Luke Skywalker defeat the evil empire. We don't want to be the ones defeating the evil empire, right? And the 48-hour book method really starts from the customer's perspective. This is why we do the SMIQ, right? And the SMIQ is about understanding what's motivating the customer to go somewhere, right? Like, what's the avatar's reason to do anything, read your book or attend your e-course. In the 48-hour book method book itself, we talk about Jennifer, who's a consultant who wants to get invited to speak at conferences in her industry so that she gets better clients and of course a better fee for her services as a consultant. So this start from your customer perspective now brings a completely different challenge for your relationship with your client, because your client already thinks they know exactly everything that needs to be in the e-course.
Yeah. So I think there are lots of things that I can talk about, but I think what I want to do is I want to actually pick your brain on how would you take this approach. Between our last call, I did discover one more little detail that would help us in this discussion today, which was, as you pointed out, that the customer avatar, that the problems that we are talking about are different problems and need different solutions. So, for example, the problem of having an army of well-trained photographers working for me is a different problem, and it needs a different solution than just having a passive income through converting your knowledge, which was another, I didn't talk about it, but which was the immediate motivation behind this course. The problem is that it's too risky. I mean, if it fails, I'm failing. Why do they? I mean, they can go and record anything by themselves. If they're taking help, it's my responsibility to mitigate the risk of them creating a product that doesn't do well in the market.
That nobody wants.
Exactly. And that is the core behind hiring product manager. And that was my brief career in product management taught me that the only reason for product managers to exist is so that the product don't fail in the market, right? So that's the mentality, and thanks to you, because this is mainly I got this direction in my career because of working with you and through your mentorship. So with this knowledge, I asked him, um, so you wanna create a wedding videography course or a photography course? And the initial idea was both, and it looks logical. Yeah, both. Maybe we can create a course where people will learn the photography first and then upgrade to videography. And then in the discussion, we discovered that like people who are motivated by photography are not the same as videography. So as an upsell, it makes no sense because the people who are photographers. People who are videographers. So they need a separate line, of course. And that simply means two different customer avatars. So even though you're
and that clarity is worth millions when you think about the value of a product, right? Because I mean, think about how complex the messaging would need to be if you're targeting videographers and photographers at the same time. Like the amount of copy you need to create, the complexity of that copy, it becomes a really overwhelming problem from a marketing standpoint.
And not only that, there are people who are established photographers who want to specialize or start getting premium gigs in Indian wedding photography because they're pretty expensive and they're more profitable if you know what you're doing than any other wedding. And there are people who are starting the photography for the first time. They have not been a photographer before, but they would like to, right from the beginning, would like to start with Indian wedding photography. Again, two different customer avatars. When you mix it with the previous question of the customer avatar instance I was talking about, which was one, the photographer versus videographer. Now think about it. A starting photographer and an established photographer. A starting videographer and established. There are now four customer avatars.
There are now four customer avatars. Yeah, exactly. And that's actually one of the things that I think is the most valuable about the 48-hour book method is this constant, insistent focus on a clear avatar.
Yeah. So Vasco, help me walk through the process of applying the 48-hour book method, tools from 48-hour book method in creating the journey of working with the client and using our methodology. So how would it look like? Let's begin
one of the key things that you need to solve immediately is which one of these four to focus on. And the first thing that people will tell me, and I heard this countless times, is, well, if I focus on one, I lose the others. Let me just say that that's not the case. But even if it were, there's a solution for it. Of course, you want to target the most important, i.e., in this case, profitable or recruiting talent pool. In the case of your client, that the most important recruitment talent pool of those four. So which one is it, right? And one of the things we talk a lot about in the 48-hour book method is testing. We should test everything. If we think that there's four potential customer avatars, we need to create targeted lead generators, so lead magnets for those four, and then through experience in the market, find out where the traction is, right? Yeah. Like a very simple example would be have the exact same course first module, like one module, nothing else, just one module. And that module is applicable content-wise to the four avatars. But now create four campaigns, one for each avatar, which has, of course, different triggers, different focus, different keywords that are being used. And then actually start promoting those and evaluate the traction you get in the market. And you can do this rather quickly, right? With, you're the expert on this, Ed, so you can probably speak to it a bit more. But with just a few £100 or a few $100 or euros, you can run a couple of Facebook campaigns and actually figure out which of this is out there, the biggest group for your goal, right? Remember, and this is very important, your client needs to first decide whether he wants to generate passive income, which means we need a higher or a bigger lead generation funnel or top of the funnel, or if he wants to recruit talent for his own business, which is a totally different problem. Here you don't need a lot of leads. You need to be geographically focused and you need to get people around where you live, right? Within a few 100 kilometers at most, because people are not going to travel from the other side of the world to do one
it's not
wedding.
physical, it's virtual, so it's okay. Now they're opening up for the global. So I did this preliminary round of discussion, and we realized that because there's a copywriter involved, and it's pretty expensive to get good copy work on it. So testing the proposition on 4 different customer avatars would cost a lot. So what we did was we come up with some kind of a passion starting point in a way that, like, okay, so my question to my client was like, which one of these is the easiest one for you to teach, convince, like it's a no-brainer for you. So we come up with this idea of a person who wants to start a photography as a career, like, or a side career, freelancers, like solo photography career, and want to get into the Indian wedding photography. So at least now we can narrow down the tests onto one person. Now the experiment may fail, but very likely it may not fail. It will just pivot.
So that's actually a good point. Like the idea of experimentation is not to fail or to succeed. The idea of experimentation is to quickly learn with very minimal investment, so that you can adapt, as you said, pivot the campaign and the messaging, and then go on and continue to grow. So one of the things that you said, which is very important, is to look at the passion of the client, right? Like, what are they really motivated to work on? Because there's no point in asking them to work on something they will just look at with dread. That is counterproductive, right? Like, you don't want to start with something that maybe it sounds attractive financially, but you don't really see yourself doing. There's enough business out there if you solve real problems. So start with the passion you have.
What to do next? So once we have this person in our mind, roughly, it's not a real person yet. It's still an imaginary person. What to do from here on? What's the next step?
So the most common anti-pattern I see is that people want to go and build the whole course and then start selling it. And this is a problem, because, of course, that takes a long time. And if it's the wrong content, you just invested loads of time and money into something that is not selling. So what we do in the 48-hour book method, that's why it's called 48-hour book method, is we do a 48-hour workshop where we go from an understanding of the avatar, having the SMIQ answers already collected. We started dissecting those, grouping them, figuring out what are the key problems that they want to solve. And we designed the book, or in this case, the e-course, the modules of the e-course, around the problems. And the very basic concept is, you start with the goal, right? In our case, in our book, it's Jennifer wants to be invited to speak at or to keynote at conferences in her industry. We start from the goal and we say, okay, so what are the reasons she's not doing that already, right? Like, what is she saying? Why isn't she doing that already? And then you collect those, and then you see from importance, you start to write down what the modules are based on her objections, or in the avatar's objections, right? The title of each chapter is either a high-level goal or a high-level objection. This is very important, and this gives you the outline. Now, for your client, once you have the outline, you can start selling the course immediately, right? You can start right now selling that course and start the enrollment in like 2 months, right? Yeah. Or, some people would call it pre-selling or pre-launching, whatever you want to call it, but you're selling based on the content that you are still to produce. And that will give you enormous amount of feedback, not only about the detailed content that you write down, but also, is there traction in the market? Because if there isn't, you stop, you pivot. But if there is, now you got feedback, you fine-tune it, and you continue to produce those modules one by one, and then go on. And the next step from that would be to actually have one module, maybe even the first module, that does kind of the introduction of why you're doing this, what kind of problems you're going to solve in the e-course, kind of outlines the whole story, like we did in the 48-hour book. The first 3 chapters outline the whole method. They don't give you the details, but they outline the whole method. And then you start giving out that free module as a lead magnet, so that you get people that are enrolling in your course already, giving you their contact information, and therefore also giving you a clear indication that they are much more likely to buy the e-course later on. That gives you the first audience to market the course to, and also what you can use to do the actual launch, right?
Yeah. There's some other challenges I discovered in this approach. So this was my initial thought as well. But then the challenges are that because this is a photography and a course that would need some pre-recorded videos about the techniques and tools and stuff like that, it cannot effectively delivered, or at least from our understanding at this point, cannot be effectively delivered live or as we go along. So the option we came up with is like delay the delivery date and the sales date. So in between, what we do is we sell the idea first, and then people who buy this program, I will interview them, we will survey them, and then based on their needs, their demands, we customize the curriculum of the program. And we will apply the customer journey that it's called journey map. You will see in 48-hour book method, if you've downloaded the free chapters, you know what we are talking about, and create that. Now the challenge is between now and the experiment. So the experiment is going to be a sales page which is making a big promise. So at this point we only have this identified a theme of the whole course program and the rough customer avatar. We don't even know if this customer avatar is real because I have no data. It looks real. So it's a customer avatar who's a beginner photographer who want to get into photography because you want to add, like, let's say 50 to 100K more and into his earning. And the end result is they want to be photographing Indian weddings, lucrative idea of Indian weddings. And we know that we're going to launch it as a pre-launch, as you describe, and then we're going to create the course after we study those people who bought it. But from now to the launch, the copy of the launch still need some kind of this customer journey sorted out. So what's your tip or advice on creating the initial customer journey for the experiment so that we can
start absolutely selling? That's a great question, and maybe we'll end on that today and maybe continue next week. The first thing, the most important thing, and we've heard that objection many times. One of our clients, Sandra, just had the same objection, which is, okay, but I don't, I can't draw on 100 people to give me an SMIQ answer. What do I do? And that's a very common objection. And also, you don't want to do that. When you run the first SMIQ, you want to ask maybe 3 to 5 people face-to-face or on a call like this, so that you get the opportunity to ask further questions, to understand better their thinking and the problems, the challenges that they are facing, which will then give you the content to build the SMIQ survey that you send to a much larger audience. So here's a tip. You can start using that right now. You can go on LinkedIn. You can find 3 to 5 people that fit your avatar description. 3 to 5 people. You don't need more than that. And you get them on a call with you. Start with the people that already know you. That's easier, right? It's easy for you to reach out and it's easy for them to agree. But if you don't get 3 to 5, that way you just enlarge the search a little bit more, and you again try to get 3 to 5 people that fit your avatar's description from LinkedIn and have a conversation with them. The best would be to have a call. You can also have a messaging or email discussion with them, but better to have a call. And that will give you the first what they think, what they see, what they say, what they think, that the collection of pains, the collection of gains, that start to build your empathy map. At first, it will be a very sparse empathy map and a very sparse story map, but it's something that you can start to build on. But most important, it gives you the content you need to generate the survey, the SMIQ survey you can then send to a larger audience. And you can still use LinkedIn for that as an example. You then find 50 to 100 people on LinkedIn that fit your avatar description, and you send them the survey, an automated, right, online survey. So this is a very important part, and this is something we insist that our 48-hour book method authors, the people who go through the coaching program with us, do, is first interview 3 to 5 people face-to-face if possible, over an internet call if face-to-face is not possible, and get the opportunity to have that dialogue, that Q&A with them, so that you understand their context better.
Perfect. This fills the gap. This is exactly what I need to do.
All right, awesome. Well, next week I guess we'll continue on this because this is just the beginning. There's some more tips we have to share about how to maximize the impact of that landing page experiment, kind of the pre-sale experiment that you guys are talking about now. Because that, don't forget that everything is about lead generation, right?
Yeah.
Even the pre-sale experiment is about lead generation. So we'll talk about that next week.
Perfect. Thank you.